Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the E-commerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-commerce Edge podcast. It is my great pleasure to welcome our incredible next guest, Daniela Bolzmann, and she is joining us to talk all about Amazon, and she is the CEO and founder of Mindful Goods. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
It's so cool. And we were chatting about off air that we've got a lot of connections in common. I noticed on LinkedIn we have 690 mutual connections. So I tell you, that must mean we either run in the same circles or something's in the water.
Yeah, no, we're both in e-commerce, so it's a small world.
It is a very small world, absolutely. And how did you come to, before we talk about Mindful Goods and before we talk about what you're doing today, and you've lived in a number of different places around the United States and around the world, which is pretty cool. I have as well, born and raised in Southern California, don't live there anymore, lived in New Zealand for 28 years, now been living in Mexico for the last 2.5 years. So we're both children of the world, so to speak, which is very cool. I love getting new perspectives on the world, but how did you first get into this wonderful world of e-commerce to begin with?
That's a good question, actually. So I am a 20 plus year marketer now, and I had done lots of other marketing businesses in the past, and I had exited a startup. And around that time, I was going through an early midlife crisis in my early 30s, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life for that next chapter. And during that process of discovery, I realized, okay, I've been a Jill of all trades, so to speak, in that I can create websites, I can code, I can do landing pages, I can do email marketing, I can do all these things, right? But I wanted to specialize and put all of my energy into one area. And one of my goals in life was to work with brands and build brands. And so when I realized that's what I wanted to pursue, it came down to really, am I going to be an expert at Shopify or at Amazon? And so I played around with both. And around that time was when Amazon purchased Whole Foods, if you remember. And
yes,
I was so blessed at the time. My family had a business in CPG. So I asked if I could play around with their products and learn how Amazon worked. And when I did that, I realized, man, I'm a marketer and an entrepreneur, and tech tools come so easy to me. But to do this, it's like such a huge learning curve. And once I figured it out, I started actually getting bids from other agencies. And at the time, there wasn't Amazon specific agencies. There was only a handful of them, but every other marketing agency was basically saying they did Amazon, but they didn't really focus on it. It was one of the things of many that they did. And so I knew that they weren't going to be great at it. And I didn't want to put in that much budget into something that was going to be so costly and not know the return. And so I ended up taking it on myself. And in that, I ended up helping out other brands along the way, and then realized there are so many people like me that are realizing that Amazon is such a beast and they don't want to be doing all the million things. So the first 2 years of Mindful Goods was actually a full service Amazon agency. And I was pulling my hair out left and right, creating custom strategies for brands, building those landing pages, doing those like many chats and chatbots and all of these things that, like, at that time it was like how well you could be a hacker in e-commerce. It was like learning all the million things you could hack together to make things work. And after a couple of years, I realized that we were really great at one piece of it, which was the SEO and the creatives. And once I realized we were turning away a lot of business for people that I wanted to support, but they couldn't afford 10K retainers every month. So we basically said, okay, let's offer to the brands that we want to work with, let's just offer them services on the side to help them get up and running on Amazon, or help them break through a plateau on Amazon and just focus on their conversion rate, just focus on their creatives, just focus on SEO. And in doing that, it was actually perfect timing. COVID hit, and all of these brands now didn't have retail stores to sell at. They all had to be on Amazon, and they all had to be on Amazon fast. So all of their budget had to get redirected to Amazon. So we basically flipped our entire model. We no longer do full service Amazon retainer business. Now we do project-based business, SEO, and creative for brands that sell on Amazon.
Wow, what a journey. And I love the fact that you were eating your own dog food long before you ever externalized this service, and you cut your teeth on the family business and helping them find success on Amazon, and then saying, well, look, why wouldn't I take this wonderful experience that I have and externalize this, package it up, productize it, and deliver it to a broader set of customers and merchants that want to do well and succeed on Amazon. And I like the fact that you decided ultimately to niche down very heavily on almost like the CRO, what I like to call the CRO piece of Amazon. Obviously, you've got the creative, you've got the landing pages, you've got the branded pages, etc. And so I broadly, from an umbrella perspective, I always put it in my mind as this almost like all CRO focused activities. How can I, it's not so much how can I drive traffic to my Amazon profile, or how can I cut costs on FBA, or how can I do a connection between Shopify and my Amazon profile so that I can get pushed into Amazon to sell. And then how do I pull my orders down and worry about the system integration to get orders down and order statuses back up to Amazon so that you don't run afoul of Amazon's rules in that regard in terms of shipping times and turnaround times and status updates and answering questions on Amazon and all those things. Like Amazon, as
So
you
much.
said, is a beast, right? And then of course we've got PPC on Amazon, and we've got all those aspects of it, and it's the third most leveraged digital marketing and PPC platform in the United States after Google and Meta. It's a beast in its own right. Like you could build an entire company just on Amazon PPC. And so I feel, and I've said this before on the podcast, niching down to me is a superpower, but it's really hard to do because it feels like you're giving away so much opportunity as an entrepreneur at heart. And I can tell you're an entrepreneur at heart. It hurts to narrow your ICP, your ideal customer profile. It feels like you're doing yourself a disservice when you do that, but you're actually doing your clients a massive service to niche down,
I
right?
think now I've reframed it because I've realized that it's actually helped me as well. To do less
Yeah.
actually makes you incredibly better at what you do because you're keeping your focus, and it's like sharpening your skills to the 10th degree. But when I was focused on learning all the things, and I still get distracted by all the shiny objects, especially when we have AI this, AI that, AI this. Now I'm like, ooh, what are all the things I get to play with every single week? But it has allowed me to really be focused on results. So now we are extremely focused on results for all of our clients. And to your point, the thing that I like to explain to people, because you think you like listed off all those things and your mind is going a million miles an hour thinking of all the million things you have to do in an Amazon business. So I like to distill it down and say there's really, for me, there's two buckets, but for most businesses, there's three, right? So there's traffic, there's conversion, and then there's the admin behind the scenes, logistics, all of
Post-purchase
that
journey.
stuff, right? Which, like, how do you cut down your shipping costs? How do you do that with your packaging? How do you do that with your making sure you're getting your refunds from Amazon? Like all of that stuff, right? And then like those other two pieces though, oftentimes the one that gets missed is the conversion piece. Everyone's focused on traffic. If you look at the conversations that are happening on LinkedIn, 90% of the conversations that people are having is about how you're driving traffic, PPC, TikTok, Google Ads, like all these things. It's really sexy to talk about, but they're not talking about the conversion piece. Like, how are you going to you're going to spend all this money, drive all the traffic to this page, to this horribly ugly page that you've built on Amazon. And of course, it's not going to convert. So those are the things that we like to focus on day in and day out. And because our team is solely focused on that one piece, it's become our superpower.
Wow, amazing. And as someone who, when I lived in New Zealand, there is no Amazon New Zealand. So they now service, as of about 2 years ago, they started servicing New Zealand from Australia because Amazon is very big in Australia and growing very fast in Australia. But they don't have a DC in New Zealand. They don't have an amazon.co.nz domain name. Everything's off of amazon.com.au. And so I didn't really I occasionally used Amazon when I lived in New Zealand, but it was almost never. I used to shop online through lots of websites. Amazon just wasn't one of them. But when I moved to
I was just going to ask you,
Mexico,
what about
I
Mexico?
was forced. I had no choice. I like most of my purchases now online, and I do 90% of my purchasing online now. And apart from grocery, which of course I shop through local grocery stores online, and I have it delivered to me here in Mexico online. But for most of my retail purchases, they're all on Amazon now. And it's so interesting for someone that didn't really know how Amazon worked or didn't really, and I'm still not an Amazon expert by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly after spending the ungodly amount of money I've now spent with Amazon, I'm starting to understand better Amazon's buyer psychology and the types of things. And I've talked to a lot of my friends who've been Amazon shoppers for many years, and they all do similar things to what I do, right? They're Prime members. The first thing in a search result is they filter for Prime to make sure they get
Yep.
free shipping. Then they filter by 4 stars and above. That's the first. It's the same first steps we all take when we do a search on Amazon, right? And so to me, it feels like there are certain boxes that if most merchants want to be successful on Amazon, there's these 5 boxes they have to tick. Otherwise, first of all, they're probably never going to get found. Second of all, if they ever get found, they're probably never going to convert. Third of all, if they do convert at once, if they provide a shitty experience, they're probably never going to have any repurchases. And so to me, and it feels that whole feedback loop of the star ratings and the reviews and people can upload videos and photos. It just seems to me like, and I'd love your
Yeah.
take on this, that most merchants throw a bunch of shit against the Amazon wall and just try to see what sticks. And that feels like a hopelessly vague, and it feels like a strategy built on hope, not based on a plan.
I'll tell you what I see most often. To your point, what I'm seeing most often is actually not, it's not like a lot of spaghetti thrown against the wall in that sense. It's usually a couple different things. One, it's sellers who think the creative is too expensive. And I get it. If you're starting a brand, you have budget constraints. You're not going to have the best branding out the gate. You level up over time. A lot of people do that. That's totally fine. When you do that, though, a lot of people go to Fiverr, they go to these sites, and then they're like just getting the cheapest images they can possibly find. And so you have to really sit down and think about the math, right? If your category is doing a 20% conversion and you're only hitting a 10% conversion, and your images, if you spent a little bit more, could get you to 15 or 20, and you'd be spending half the amount in advertising dollars per month, does it really make sense for you to cheap out on the creatives in the beginning, right? So it's like you got to really sit down and put the numbers down and figure this stuff out. And the second thing I'm seeing is that there's, let's say, more established brands that are out there and they're doing really well on their D2C websites. And maybe they listed on Amazon years ago, maybe they don't sell on Amazon. But in any case, the strategy either way, when they do start to sell on Amazon, is they just take their assets that they had on Shopify, they copy and paste it to Amazon, not realizing that on a marketplace, and on the biggest marketplace in the world, you have to do some SEO research and you have to tweak your images to get that messaging across, because you don't have the undivided attention of the shopper anymore. Now you're in competition mode. Now you're fighting for every single second that somebody is on your product page. And if they're on your storefront, you're lucky, right? Because you still have their undivided attention. But a lot of people haven't even designed their storefront. Like their storefront is just like full of a placeholder. So it just, nobody's going to stay there for more than 2 seconds anyways. So you got to design your storefront. You got to think through your product imagery. The lowest level, like the easiest low hanging fruit that I say for most brands is like, when you're figuring out what your creative is, you have to have done the homework to figuring out what are the top 5 things that people need to know in order to put it in their basket and check out. Like if they're going to buy it now, how quick do you tell them those first 3 to 5 things? And say it in the product images, say it in your A+, and say it as quick as possible. And you have to be showing and telling at least one, or not more than 3, but one thing on every single image is an opportunity to sell. And so if you have a pretty Instagram image that doesn't have any text on it, that's a lost opportunity. And let's say that's the second image the customer sees, they might leave after just seeing that second image. You didn't even tell them anything. So like, it's so important that those first few images are exactly what the customer needs to know. Oh, cool. This is the sugar-free one. Yes, it's a 3-pack. And yeah, okay, cool. This is exactly what I needed, right? I'm a mom. I got to go walk the dog. I got to pick up my kid from school. Is this the thing? Boom, boom, check out. And then the other thing that's a big low-hanging fruit is that main image, right? There's so many main images that are just still stuck with just a simple product on white, like just a water bottle. What if you
and it looks like total
yeah.
shit.
And what if you took the top off and you have a hand putting the water bottle in the frame rather than just a water bottle? What if you're the only one out of the first 20 water bottles that has a hand holding the water bottle? Or these
So I can get a sense of size so that I can, and to your point, it's interesting because I oftentimes will make a purchase decision based on the information in the images. Because, and I'll tell you why that is for me, and it may not be true of all buyers on Amazon, but Amazon product pages are a shit show. They're a shit show. They literally, like, half of the information of the specs is above the fold, and then you've got this whole product suggestion bar smack in the middle. And then if you want to learn more about the product, you got to scroll down, but you can't scroll too far, because then if you go too far, the information actually isn't relevant to the actual PDP that you're on. Like Amazon, I don't know. Amazon product pages are just the worst there are out there. It is diabolical. And I'm sure they've done a million A/B tests, ABM tests to get to where they are. But Jesus, it's like a freaking carnival page. It's wild. It is wild. And to your point, if they can communicate, if a seller can communicate to me the 1, 2, 3 absolutely most important bullet points about the product on the first 3 images, that I don't actually have to scroll down. I don't have to, and especially if I'm on Amazon Mexico, if I have to copy and paste that, because of course, Amazon still doesn't do page level translation. So if you're on Amazon Mexico, I can't translate the page. I can't change the idiom to English. It's so wild. Only certain Amazon domains will allow you to translate into certain languages. So unless you've got a browser plugin or something like that, I got to actually copy and paste that shit out into a translator, and then I can figure out what the thing is about. Whereas if they have the translated text available on the page, and both the Spanish and the English language version of those bullet points on the images, when I scroll through the images, man, does it take a cognitive load off me to try to make a decision to buy that product. And do these sellers not think about this shit? Do they not think about the most basic shit you can imagine? Clearly they don't, otherwise you
No,
wouldn't
I
have a
actually
business.
love that you're saying this because are you American? Okay, you're
Yes, I am.
American living in Mexico going through this struggle, but imagine all the Latinos living in the United States that have been saying this for years. Hello, we are the second language in this country.
Largest buying cohort in the country. Yeah. It's wild. It's absolutely wild.
Yeah, so
And half of it's Amazon's fault, and half of it's the freaking
I
merchant's fault.
know. Honestly, I feel like it's such an easy thing for Amazon to fix it. It's such an give us a toggle, Amazon. If you're listening to
Yeah.
this, give us a
Well,
toggle.
well, how about in reviews? How about in reviews? You can only have the only so if in all the Spanish reviews, I can't select the idiom of the review and it won't auto translate them for me. If the only time it will allow me to auto translate them is if the original review was in another language, it will allow me to toggle between Spanish or the original language of the review, and that's it. I can't switch to my default language from my account to translate them all into English. Why is that? Why does Amazon not make that? Why can't I have a language drop down to translate them into any language I want on the PDP? It makes no just I can't figure out Amazon sometimes. I can't figure it out. It's what I think is this creates a massive opportunity for the sellers that actually care, for them to translate. For example, if they're all their product reviews on amazon.com.mx are in Spanish, what they could do is they could translate in their response. They could translate the question and the response into both Spanish and English in their response. They could actually paste the text in. And how valuable would that be? So let's just work around Amazon. Let's do shit that Amazon should be doing for us, but they don't. So to me, it just feels like there's so many opportunities here, and that's what you help merchants execute on,
That is
right?
true. That is true. I think one of the things that we're better known for is that we do a lot of split testing in our process too. So we will, for example, with main images, we're not just coming up with one main image. We're coming up with actually our process has changed recently in the last like month, I'll say. So it's fun. I'll share it with you. Now we have trained an AI tool on our top performing main images of all time. And we've tagged each one to say, these are the things that we think made it successful. We talk about things like render versus photo, badge callouts with high intent keywords, having what I call eye candy, which is like showing the ingredients or showing a splash of something behind it, or the orientation of a product, the shadows that are hanging off the product, all of these different things together, right?
Is there a person in the
Is
image?
there a
Not a
hand
person in the
model? No
image.
hand model. Is there a baby? Is there a dog? Like all of these things. Is there packaging? No packaging. There's a list of all the things that could be possible scenarios. And then there's the actual images of our top performers, right? So we train the AI on all that. And then all we have to do is take our client's image, drop it into this tool. It'll give it a little bit of context about the brand, show the website, the Amazon page, and then it'll auto give us the 15 prompts that we need for those top 15 images. Now, not all 15 are amazing, but what that does is it gives us a good base of ideation. And we can say, okay, actually, with a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of this and a little bit of this, we got a winner. A little bit of this, a little bit of this, we got a winner, right? And so now we narrow it down to maybe 2, 3, 4 images that we think are real contenders. We polish them up, split test them in a tool like PickFu or IntelliV, get one that we think is a true winner, and that is the one we upload to Amazon's split testing tool, Manage Your Experiments. So that is the kind of process that you want to be going through for everything, for your product image stack. When you're wanting to improve your A+ content, you can test the order of the A+ content, the color scheme of the A+ content. There's so many things in there that you'd be surprised. Just changing a couple of these things and you can skyrocket your conversion rate. So we're known for that. And about almost 50% of our clients see usually around, I'm going to be honest here, 20 to 40%, I think is what they see. And then the other 50% are anywhere from 40 to 2,500% increases in sales. So you can really move the needle with your sales if your product pages need some improvement.
And how much of this is, I hate to use the word common sense, because in my experience, common sense is often uncommon good sense. And so the reality is things that seem totally natural to me to fix are not natural to everyone. It's like when I'm proofreading a bit of text, like this thing that's misspelled will leap off the page at me as if it was bolded just as I'm reading it. It's just the way my brain is wired. But I realize that not everybody's wired the same way. And so as a result of that, what seems natural for me to make a page better may not be natural to everyone. And do you find that too? Like, what are the
100%.
1, 2, 3 things that like 95% of your customers, when they first come to you, that they're just always getting wrong? And it's like, what are the 1, 2, 3 things that seem so drop dead simple, basic, normal to you that are just so not that for your customers?
So 100%, I will say that you're hitting the nail on the head. Not everybody is a creative. Not everybody has the creative eye. So for me, the way that I like to break it down for everyone to understand is there's really 3 steps, right? And this is the most simplistic way to think about your listing, is in the terms of a funnel, right? So how does everybody come into the funnel? They type in the search words for finding your product, right? So the first thing is they need to be able to find you. How do they find you? You got to have those keywords in your descriptions. You got to have it in your alt text. That's the text that lives behind your images. You got to have it in your title. You got to have it in your bullets. You got to do that homework to know what they're searching for, period. Like step number 1, right? So that's
Yes.
the first thing I look for. If you haven't done that, you haven't done step number 1, because if they can't find you, how are they going to click on you? So that's step number
Yeah.
2. Let's say they do find you. You did put the SEO words. You are showing up in the search results, but nobody's clicking on your product when they're looking at 50 other ones, right? How do you get them to click on you? That's where that eye candy comes in that I talked about, and those split testing the different main image options. Even though you think you might have a winning one, can you beat that winning one? Yes or no? You should always be trying to level up from what you have. That's the,
Before you go
yeah.
on, why do I still see a significant amount of Amazon merchants who have no images at all? Like they've got like
Yeah,
they've got
I
a
don't
placeholder,
know. I
like literally literally a placeholder image coming soon, and they've had it there forever. Like, how do you think you're able to sell with no
No,
images on
I've
the phone?
seen so many, and we work with a lot of CPG products too. And that's my pet peeve, when you have like side of the bottle, front of the bottle, back of the bottle, other side of the bottle. I'm like, nobody's looking at all, nobody
Yeah,
cares. Like,
exactly. It's
yeah, we
wild.
need the nutritional facts because we want transparency. We want to know we're eating good food, right? Put that in one of the
Yeah.
images, but don't make it your whole image. There's so many other things you want to tell them about those amazing ingredients that are in your product. Talk about that.
Yes.
That's the second piece, is getting them to click to come into your listing, right? You got to do something with that main image, make it exciting, make it click worthy. There's elements you can control and there's elements you can't control. A lot of times you can't control how many reviews you're going to get in the first few months. A lot of times you can't control your pricing out the gate because you have a fixed cost and you need to be breaking even or slightly profitable, or you need to have X amount for your marketing. So there's not enough wiggle room. You can absolutely play with your main image. It's one of the best factors to play around with. Fun fact, main images and product images together can improve your sales by, I think it's up to 600%. So just focusing on that lever can improve your sales. Just if you only had the money to focus on that, it can improve your sales up to 600%.
Does Amazon push that, to your knowledge, and you may not know the answer to this, does Amazon de-rank uh, products with no image? Does it prioritize in the rankings? I guess the
Images,
SERPs
the
is on
standard
SERPs.
is having 6. So it knows when you have less than 6. It gives you up to 9 slots for those product images. Most people probably don't go through all 9. Having 6 is the standard. That's what we recommend. We have not seen a difference between the brands that have 9 and the brands that have 6. There's no
Okay.
difference in the data. So for us, 6 is the standard. You should have 6, and you should have a video in that carousel. Video is key. Listings with video see 22% more sales. So you want to have a video on your listing. There's multiple places to have it. You can have it in your product image stack. You can have it in the A+. You can have it down below in the about your brand down there. So put it everywhere you can put it, because your likelihood of selling your product is going to go up if you have video. period. Doesn't need to be anything
Wow.
fancy. In fact, not fancy might be even better.
I click on 95% of the videos I see on Amazon, so I'm guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the third piece is going to be all of the images inside your listing. So that's going to be your product image stack and your A plus content. So if we think about the funnel again, we got found, then they clicked on our main image because it was super cool and sexy and they clicked on it. And then they come inside, we got to close the deal. We got to seal the deal and make sure that every single image is showing and telling. Get them to stop and look at your A plus content. Another fun fact, A plus content, basic A plus content was the only thing available to brands on Seller Central up until I think like a year and a half ago now, maybe 2 years. And then they allowed almost all brands, I think all brands on Seller Central now get access to premium A plus content. Everyone qualifies. People think they need
Wow.
to have 10 ASINs. That's not true. You qualify. Guarantee you can unlock it in the next week if you wanted to. It's really simple, and it's something that vendor central brands still have to pay at least $500,000 to $1 million in ad budget to get access to. So highly recommend
Wow.
trying to unlock this on your account. It's super simple. The only requirements is that you have submitted, I think it's 10 submissions of A plus content, which is basically, doesn't have to be you changing anything. You don't have to change a thing. Let's say you put a placeholder in one of the banner slots for, and this could be just a beautiful lifestyle image that you have with your product. Don't design anything if you don't have it. Just put it in there as a placeholder, submit it as your A plus content. There, Amazon's going to say, great, we approve this. Duplicate it, submit it again. Duplicate it, submit it again. Duplicate it, submit it again. Do that 10 to 20 times. 20 times if you absolutely want to be sure. I think Amazon says you only need to do it 5 times now, but there's some categories where we still have to do it 20 for some reason. So just do that 20 times. It'll take you 2 minutes to just do duplicate, submit, duplicate, submit. And then the only other requirement besides those submissions is having a brand story applied to all your ASINs in your catalog. So again, don't overthink this one. If you don't have your brand story designed, upload a lifestyle image as your background image. It's going to ask you to add like a little card on top so you could put a little paragraph about your brand or put your logo or whatever just to complete the requirement. Submit it. And then when it asks you to submit, it's going to tell you which ASINs do you want to apply this to. Just select all of them, submit. Once that's approved, once you've done your A plus submissions, give Amazon about a week, sometimes 2 weeks max, and you'll get a message saying, or next time you actually go check your A plus content, it'll say premium A plus content right there. It's like basic, premium, brand story.
Wow. Wow. And so what areas on the PDP does that then unlock for you that you don't get any other
So
way?
now, once you do that, you will now you can build what we call like a landing page style design. Rather than having a bunch of chunky text blocks, you can have a
Yes.
seamless top to bottom image. Imagine one long landing page smack dab in the middle of your PDP. So when a customer's
Yes.
scrolling, all of a sudden they're just hit with this
Yes.
huge, they can be hit with a huge landing page style design that's going to stop them dead in their tracks. And then you get the chance to sell them on 2 or 3 more bits about your product, right?
Oh, so the occasional PDPs on Amazon that I come across that are not a total shit show
They're
have this
really nice
enabled
ones.
and
They have like
maximized.
carousels, they have video, they have hotspots, and the best part is that they have 2 format sizes. One set you upload for mobile shoppers and one set that you upload for desktop. So that right there is going to improve your conversion. Yeah.
Massively. Yeah, because and I use Amazon on mobile on my app, and I use Amazon obviously through the browser on my desktop. So if it's mobile optimized, that also works in the Amazon app,
Yep.
I'm assuming.
Yep. You
Not
would
not not
see
not
a
just through a
different
mobile
Yeah, you
browser.
would see a different set of images that are meant for mobile.
Wow. And the layout of the page too? Wow. Okay. So once you've unlocked this A plus content, which sounds like effectively a fully editable page template, is effectively what it sounds like you're unlocking, then you can also not only design your page better, but you can also customize it for desktop versus mobile.
Exactly. Exactly. And that
Wow.
piece can improve, you'll see up to 1,008% is the highest that we've seen in uplifted sales from upgrading your A plus content.
Wow. And how many of your customers, when they first get to you, already have that unlocked and are using it?
Less than
Any?
half.
Wow. Wow. So what again, this goes back to basic versus advanced. Like you would think that this is something that everybody knows. You would think this is something everybody's taking advantage of because you don't have to pay for it. It's free. You just got to jump through a couple of hoops to make it happen. But of the 50% that aren't doing it, how many of them even know that it's available and possible for them to do?
A fraction, maybe 10%. I think you know what? It's the message is there in a lot of accounts saying unlock your premium A plus content. A lot of people don't know what that is. And sometimes when you see all those alerts in your dashboard, a lot of times you think it's a bad thing.
You tune
You
them
tune
out.
them out, you think it's a
Well, you tune
bad
them
thing, and
out.
you're like, oh, it's going to take me down this rabbit hole with customer support. Here we go. And really, the thing is with that one is when you actually go to submit the requirements, it sounds so complicated. I have to submit
Yes.
10 A plus contents. I have to sit here and design 10 A plus contents. I don't want to do that. That's what it sounds like they're saying, but it's not what they're saying. They're saying
Yes.
10 A plus submissions. And you
Yes.
think of a fancy design because that's what we do. We do a big fancy design, but you don't
Yes.
have to upload a fancy design to get it unlocked. You can upload a beautiful photo of your product as a placeholder and say that's your A plus content. They're going to approve it as long as there's nothing red flag about your photo. And then duplicate submit 10 times. Then it's going to unlock all the features. Then go design something pretty.
Wow. And help me understand how Amazon works when it comes to brand. So sometimes in my search results, I'll be on a PDP. It'll be a specific brand. You click on the brand, and sometimes there's two different experiences I get when I click on brand. One is it sounds if the brand owner has claimed the brand and they have their own storefront, then it'll take me to their. If it sounds like if someone hasn't claimed that brand, then what it does is it just takes me to search results pre-filtered for that
Yeah.
brand.
So what I'm talking about is only available to brands that are in the brand registry program, which means you are the brand owner or you have the rights to the brand from the brand owner and that you have a trademark
Okay.
on your product. Yeah. And then you
Right.
submit your trademark
Okay.
information to Amazon through what's called brand registry, very simple form. And then usually very quickly you're approved for the program if everything looks legit. And then that's where you get access to doing your regular A plus content and your regular brand story. Yeah.
Right. Which means that when somebody clicks on the brand, then they're going to go to your brand landing page, not product
And
landing
yeah,
page.
and they look similar except for the fact that you can really design beautiful content inside of a brand registered brand page. Like you can have banners that stack one on top of the next. So it is a huge advantage because think about all the competitor ads that are sitting on product pages, and you get the chance to get that attention back on your product and take up this amount of real estate on a product page, right? So let's say this is like the carousel part up here. You get all of this back.
Mhm.
You get like a few ads and then you get all of this back before people hit the reviews. So it's basically
Wow.
Amazon giving you that space back to give some storytelling about your brand, your product, all of that.
Wow. Wow. And there is, from what I understand from people in the industry, again, not the expert, you are, there is some interplay between PPC advertising on Amazon, particularly when a product or a brand first launches, and getting more highly ranked in the standard SEO based search results in Amazon. Also, making sure that you have inventory in usually more than one FBA location apparently plays into the of products, and how quickly you can effectively guarantee to get the product to someone matters. And so what I've had other Amazon experts say is, look, if you're going to put money into PPC advertising and you don't necessarily want to do it all the time, spend all that money when you drop a product. Spend all that money when you, because it really, what matters is the momentum of the sales of the product. And if you can demonstrate to Amazon that this product is in demand, it's good, it's getting good reviews, it's getting good ratings, and you can demonstrate all that within 30 days, then you're going to set yourself up for much, much higher long-term success. Even if you stop advertising via PPC on Amazon eventually, first 30-day window apparently is like the golden window for you to demonstrate to Amazon that this is a product that they should rank highly and that they should present highly in the
Mm-hmm.
SERPs. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say only 20 to 30% of the brands we work with today are new launches. And of
Okay.
those, not all of them are doing big launches. Like you have to have a good amount of healthy budget to be putting in for your inventory and your advertising costs right out the gate. So yes, there's some people that are backed and they have the money to be doing those big launches. There's a lot of brands that don't. And they come to us and they're like,
Okay.
we want to put our best foot forward. We want to look our best part. And For them, that's a critical factor, especially in CPG, which was one of the bigger categories that we support. You got to look the part if you're selling a food product. It's just part of the deal. But
Yeah.
I can count on more than my 10 fingers the amount of brands that have come to me and they did not do these big launches out the gate and they were just fine. So I think, yes, paying to play is part of the equation on Amazon today. It's an advertising landscape. It's a no-brainer. You're going to do it eventually. You got to figure out the strategy that works. Sometimes, most of the time it's on Amazon, and sometimes it's off Amazon, like TikTok and other things. Sometimes it's a mix of the two. That stuff you got to sort out. But I also don't want to scare people because we do have other success stories of brands that have launched perfectly fine out the gate without spending a ton of money on advertising because they needed to get cash flow in the bank. And where is the most demand
Yes.
in the world online? Where are people shopping the most? They're shopping on Amazon. So if there is demand, if this is a product that you're selling and you know there's demand for it, right? Like people buy ketchup every single day. Do you sell a ketchup? People are not going to stop buying ketchup. They still buy ketchup, right? If they're buying a product on Amazon that you're going to sell, there's a good chance that you're going to fit right into that traffic. Now, where this caveat comes in is if you're selling a new invention that people don't know about and they're not searching for your product, you're not going to see sales out the gate. You absolutely have to be coming up with a different strategy. That may or may not be with Amazon PPC. So it's really figuring out like what do you have at your disposal? What can you do? What can you not do? And how do you step ladder into growth for you?
And you said there was 3 steps. There's make sure that you've got the teaser image. You've got you can get them from the search. First of all, making sure you rank well in the search results. Making sure that there's enough of a reason for someone to want to click through the search results to your page. Get them to the page. You present them with some amazing information that makes them want to convert, that gets them excited, gets them hot to trot about the experience, the product, you as a brand. Maybe even they go through to your brand page and they research a little bit more before they click back and they finally make a decision about buying through you. What was the third step?
So the first step is getting found in the search results. The second step is getting them to click
Yes.
and come into your listing. The
Yes.
third step is once
Yes.
they're inside your listing, every single thing they
Yes.
see has to show and tell. So your product images top to bottom,
Right.
that carousel at the top. You got to have videos in all the places where Amazon's letting you have videos. You got to have that landing page built out for that A+ content. All of that needs to be really thought through and needs to be converting buyers, right? That's the whole function of the page is to convert.
Yeah. And how much first of all, it's super interesting how Amazon obviously like I'm working with a client right now who has been forced by Amazon to switch from 1P to 3P. So they're moving from vendor central to seller central and it's a whole rigmarole in its
Yeah, there's a
own
lot of
right to
brands
get them
going through that.
connected to Sellers Central. And they were caught in the most recent cull of 1P
Yeah.
sellers, and they weren't even warned in advance. They just one day couldn't log into vendors
Mm.
anymore. And so Amazon, apparently this is a
Yeah.
thing that Amazon does, and they don't warn people. And so you Google it or you ChatGPT it, you go, oh yeah, this has been happening
Mm.
lately. They had to very rapidly switch their integrations from 1P to 3P. But now we're going through the submission process of getting approved because we have to integrate from their ERP into Amazon and from Amazon into their ERP for order fulfillment and order status updates. And we have middleware doing that. And the middleware has to be approved to be able to connect to Amazon. And there's a massive form. It's like a 50-question form that we, as the technical support for this brand, they don't know how to answer the questions. They don't have a policy around data retention. They don't have a policy around all this crap. And from what I can tell, at least, and I'd love your take on this, is they try to make the form about security and they try to make the form about data protection and they try to make the form about privacy. But what it seems, if I'm reading between the lines, what it seems to be is we don't want you to capture or store this PII so that you can't do an end run around Amazon and remarket to these people after the purchase that we send to you. So we don't want you to add these customers to your database. We want you to always have to reacquire this same customer again and again on Amazon, and we don't want you to have any direct communication
Oh
with
yeah.
these customers
Oh
at
yeah.
all. In the process of locking down your security for the customer's best interest, actually what it is, we don't want you to hold any data about these people at all, including their mailing address, which you now have to ship their product to. We don't want you to even retain that because then you could possibly send them a postcard, is what they're
Yep.
worried about. So that seems
They
like a
absolutely
hoop.
do not want that. That's been like that for years. And I was just on e-commerce Chris McCabe's podcast and
Yes.
he deals with this stuff every single day still. He's, don't people know that you cannot be sending postcards? Like you cannot be doing that, but
Yes.
people are still doing it. And so
Yes.
Amazon cracked down on that many years ago, and they're still cracking down on it. Like it's still happening. So yeah, they absolutely do not want that. Amazon rewards you for you going out and doing your advertising on something like TikTok and you driving the traffic to Amazon. You're going to see flywheel effect. You're going to be rewarded, and they have programs to
Yes.
reimburse you for some of that cost. Awesome. What they
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that they now have that new program where if you drive traffic, but it's only certain sources I think that they'll reimburse you from.
it's a percentage. So let's just say it's 10% or 8% or whatever, but it helps, right? And they don't, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. What they don't want is you stealing their customers. They went out, they
Yes.
captured the traffic, they brought it to Amazon. They know this person's shopping for this. And then you as the seller now think it's your customer. No, that's Amazon's customer, right? Now, what you
Yeah.
can do is you can drive the traffic to your own landing page. Let's do Google ad to your own landing page. You capture the shopper. You can then send them an email later and do a marketing campaign to say, hey, we have a special sale going on right now on Amazon. Go check it out. Because we noticed you didn't buy from our actual D2C website where we have better profit margins. But you know what? Maybe you value convenience. Why don't you go shop our deal on Amazon? Amazon's going to see that traffic came from you. They're going to reward you with that flywheel effect. So they want stuff like that. They want smart marketers. They don't want people stealing, right? That's the way they look at it. There's their customer and then there's like your customer. It's very clear in their minds. They also don't want you sending people to a landing page that is, did you like our product, yes or no? And if you say yes, go leave us a good review. And if you say no, then contact us here, right? Like they don't, that in
Yes.
their mind is manipulation. And even though you did it with the
Mhm.
best intent, right? All the happy customers, go leave us positive reviews. And all the sad customers, we want to help you. Let's resolve this. It is
Yes.
a good intent, but it is manipulation in their eyes. So you got to be really careful with that stuff. One of the things that sellers still don't know when they're starting is that they can't have their friends and family go leave them a bunch of reviews. That would be one of the first things I would think of if I was launching a brand. I would be like, Mom, Dad, go buy my product, leave me a review. You can't do that. Amazon's like a ninja. They track everything. They know who your mom is. They know who your
Yeah.
dad is.
They
In
probably
fact,
do.
they
They
know where
probably
they
know.
live. They're Amazon.
Correct. Yeah, and you're probably sharing a login to Prime. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. And the other thing you can't do, well, I think most brands do it, even though they're not supposed to. I think you're not even allowed to put an insert into the parcel that's being shipped to the customer that directs them anywhere but Amazon, right?
So the way that I like to explain this is you got to think about your intent when you're doing this, right? Sony, one of the biggest manufacturers of consumer goods in the world, right? Or Apple, even, are they not going to put inserts in their box? No, they're putting inserts in their box, right? So they're putting inserts, but the intent
Yes.
there is that they're actually trying to help the customer, let them know what the guarantee is with the product, let them know what the customer support is.
Warranty
Totally, all of
registration and
that
all
stuff,
that
right?
crap.
So I think that's the kind of stuff you got to abide by when you're using inserts. What Amazon doesn't want to see is those messages like, help us, we're a small business. Your review means the world to us. They don't want any of that, right? They want you to play by the rules, put an honest insert and move on. And you got to be careful with that stuff because it is one of those things that can get you more than a slap on the wrist.
So if one of your customers reports you or says something to Amazon or whatever, or if they spot check one of your boxes going out and it's got a redirect insert or it's got a QR code that's going to redirect you to your DTC website, they're probably not
Right.
going to be too happy about that. And I suppose you could get banned from Amazon if you do it, if it's egregious
I mean,
enough.
there's so many things you can get banned from Amazon. You got to be careful with everything.
Yeah, that's why most merchants consider that a frenemy at best, right? Like a lot of brands, they don't want to sell on Amazon, but they don't have a choice. They're like, if 50% of every U.S. e-commerce dollar is being spent on Amazon, geez, am I going to just opt out of that? Am I just going to completely opt out? And I don't know what the percentage is here in Mexico. There's Mercado Libre, there's Amazon, there's Coppel, and then there's everybody else. And so I don't know what percentage Amazon has here. It must be phenomenal. And so I don't think if you were trying to sell online in Mexico, I think it would be really difficult to survive without selling on Amazon, Mercado Libre, and Coppel in this country. I think you'd have to sell on all three. I think you'd have to do all three. I think you could try to have a DTC website, but I have bought off some DTC websites here in Mexico, but they're few and far between. And it's only when usually I can't find it on any of those other platforms. And do you help merchants primarily in the US or every Amazon
We
property?
mostly support brands who sell in the US. Although we have supported other marketplaces, we've done Germany, we've done UK, we've done other countries, but 90% of our business, 95% is in the States. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And is demand increasing? Are most brands that maybe were holdouts for a long time on Amazon and they said, "Nah, we'll never do Amazon. Nah, we don't want to pay the Amazon tax." Are a lot of your customers like they formally said that and then they're like, "Okay, if you can't
We
beat
have a
them,
good
join them."
mix. We, at this point, work with a lot of the biggest direct to consumer brands in the States. And I think most of them have gotten over that idea that they just want to stay D2C. Most of them realize that they're missing out on a whole nother channel and they want to do Amazon, but if they're going to do it, they want to do it well. Yeah. And we're talking some of the biggest brands in the world are thinking this way. So that trickles down to brands that are emerging and on the rise for sure. I mean, for brands that are on the rise and emerging, it's a no-brainer. Like, why would they not do it? They're gonna be able to capture more traffic faster, easier on something like Amazon than they would building and nurturing their own customer from scratch. It makes a lot of sense to have that revenue coming in.
And of the clients that you work with, what percentage of those typically when they start with you already are selling on Amazon and they just aren't seeing the traction they want or they can't figure out what they're doing wrong and why they're just not succeeding on Amazon and you have to do an audit on them and then you go,
Mm-hmm.
here's the 53 things you need to improve and we can help you with this, versus the brands that are like they're thinking about going on to Amazon for the very first time and they're going, "Oh, we're scared shitless, frankly, that we're going to screw this up. It's going to be difficult to recover from that in Amazon. So we would rather make sure that we're going to put our best foot forward. We're going to do this Amazon thing. We're going to try bloody do
It's
it
it's an
correctly
eighty
out of the gate."
twenty. About 80% is the brands that they've hit a plateau. They're either already selling on Amazon or they're very experienced sellers. We just did two case studies in the last month. One was a seven-figure brand it's a snack brand, and they were already selling on Amazon, doing well, but it was a break even channel for them, right? We came in, we lifted their sales by hundreds of percent. And I don't know the exact number right now, but you'll have to check out my website for it. I think it's like 500% increase in sales. And now they've been able to reduce their ad spend and now they actually have a profitable channel, right? So for them, it was like a huge success. We have another brand who's an eight-figure brand. They've been selling for 20 years. I don't know how many years of that was on Amazon, but in both cases, both brands had plateaued. They're at various stages of their journey. One's not an eight-figure brand, but this eight-figure brand was doing an audit of themselves and realizing, hey, relative to our competitors are stepping up their game now. We got to get our house in order. We got to step up our listings and we got to play with the big boys. And that's what a lot of the eight-figure sellers are thinking right now. They got into Amazon at a time when it was easy. And now their competitors are new to market. Brands are coming in and taking market share. And they're like, okay, now we gotta step it up.
And how are you growing your business? Meaning that the demand is
Mm-hmm.
there, sure, but how are you getting found? How, apart from being on podcasts, etc., how are you marketing yourself in the market? How are you keeping your pipeline full? How are you thinking about the content? Because obviously you're not necessarily selling on Amazon, and so you're not necessarily got a CPG brand of your own that you're trying to push onto Amazon and make money that way. So you have to create and build and drive your own pipeline, much like I do in my own consultancy. And I've been making content for 10 years. So this is luckily I was building a personal brand long before I ever needed a
Yeah.
personal brand. Thank God. It's certainly, if I had to rely, for example, on PPC ads to drive my own pipeline, it would probably bankrupt me, to be honest. And so I'm just grateful that I started building up a content pipeline so long ago, and that it's a muscle that I've so steadily exercised that I spend between 8 and 10 hours a week on content and have
Yeah.
done for years, for at least 6 years. And that's paid real dividends now to where there's no stress to keep my pipeline full now because people know about me and I've got a process that means and an environment that means I'm putting out a steady stream of content every single week, and it's in my calendar. It's just part of my routine now. I don't have to think about
Yeah.
it. It's on autopilot. How do
So
you do it?
similar to you, I'm a little bit behind you though. I think I only started about 5 years ago. And I would say I really took it serious 2 years ago. And now I would say LinkedIn is my number one channel. I think for most entrepreneurs, it's just finding like your channel that you vibe with, or you feel like you're in flow when you're in that channel. For me, it's LinkedIn. For some people, it's YouTube. For some people, it's podcast. For some people, it's their email newsletter. I would say 50% of our business comes from partnerships. The other 50% are coming from LinkedIn. And those partnerships I
Yep.
created from LinkedIn, made those relationships over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like LinkedIn has been really successful for my business. I'm really fortunate that same as you, I don't know what I would do if I didn't have a personal brand, if I hadn't started putting myself out there, if I didn't grow my content. I don't spend 10 hours a week, but I do about 1 million impressions a year just on LinkedIn. Not bad. Not bad.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's very good. That's very good. That's very good. That 1 million impressions a year
Yeah.
is impressive. Listen, this has been a fabulous conversation. I've learned a ton. I know my audience will have learned a ton as well. I'll drop a link to your LinkedIn profile and your website in the show notes. But other than that, if people want to talk to you about all things CRO for Amazon, what's
Find
the
me
best way
on
to get a hold of you?
LinkedIn or connect with me. I'm pretty easily available at mindfulgoods.co as well as on LinkedIn.
I love it. I love it. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like. It could be personal or professional. Daniela, what is your
I
question
have a
for me
good one
today?
for you. So, if
I'm
you could
waiting.
only share one mindset trick that you've had to embrace in your journey, if you were giving this advice to an entrepreneur or somebody who even wants to be an entrepreneur and level up, what is the mindset hacks or trick or advice you would give them?
Yeah, this is such a great question because I actually had to do this a few years ago. I realized that my mindset had, for some reason, I had over time, I had started to see the negative side of life more than the positive side. I had started to see the negativity in the news. I had started to see the downside in things versus the upside in things. I had started to see the challenge versus the opportunity. For whatever reason, and it's probably, I'm a big part of the sort of the truth movement. I'm a big fan of natural health. We didn't jab during COVID and we never would and we never will. We're very into natural health. We're very into living in harmony with our community and our friends. And I guess just understanding how the world works and the powers that be and all those things. And having lived outside of the United States for longer than I lived in it, I've now lived outside of the United States for over 30 years. And so I think when you see how the world works, because you've lived and traveled extensively around the world and you've been able to see the world through other people's eyes than just your own, the risk that you can run is you can become pretty jaded and you can become a pretty cynical individual. And I realized that I'd become that person that I did not want to be. And so what I decided is I made a commitment to myself, said, look, I need to rewire my brain, and I need to rewire my brain fast to start defaulting to the positive, to default to the opportunity, not the challenge, to default to gratitude instead of pessimism, to default to a better place. And so what I did was, and I have to give credit where credit is due, I started to listen to some motivational speakers, and there was a number of people, the podcasts that I had listened to that were motivational in nature. But what I committed to myself was, I said, for the next year, every single day, I'm going to consume at least one piece of positive content, and I'm going to produce at least one piece of positive content per day. And that is going to force my brain to seek out the positive so that I can write about it. And it's going to force my brain to absorb the positive and seek that out so basically I had to start guarding the type of content I was letting into my sphere of consciousness. And I had to start guarding the type of content that I was producing so that it was positive instead of negative. And man, and I did it pretty consistently for an entire year. And when I looked back on it, I was like, this was game changing. This was something that completely and forever altered my mindset. And then the final step that I took was I slowly started putting distance between myself and anybody that was
Yeah.
negative in my life.
Wow.
So anybody that defaulted to the negative, I didn't cut them off, but I just slowly started to spend less
Right.
time with them. Anybody that wasn't like inspirational, and anybody that wasn't on a
Yeah.
positive trajectory, anybody that
Expanders.
wasn't trying to, yeah, anybody that wasn't on that same journey as me, I slowly just started to distance myself from them so that I could be more cautious about who I let into my
Wow.
life and the
And
way that
how
I
long did
wanted
it
to
really take
live it.
you, follow-up question, how long did it really take you to notice the difference in the rewiring? Did it take the full year?
No, it didn't. It only took a couple of months. It took probably, I would say, 2 to 3 months for me to really start noticing that to create the positive became easier, to notice the positive and seek out positive and content became easier, to see the glass half full as opposed to half empty became easier. It did start to change pretty quickly, but to cement that in my synapses to where it was literally the default. And look, I still stumble occasionally. I still have my moments where I'm not Mr. Positive, and I still have my moments, but the default for me is to see the good in the world and to see the good in my friends and to see the good in the world from an opportunity standpoint, from a place that I live standpoint, and I also had to forcibly change the
Oh,
language I
I
used even
bet.
in my brain to say, not that I
I
have to,
get
but I
to.
really started being, yeah, yeah, I get to instead of have to. And just lots of little hacks along the way that I picked up from podcasts and from books and things like that, that reframing started becoming a really important part of my life. There was just lots of things
Woo,
I needed to work on that I realized I had gotten lazy with who and what I had let into my
woo.
life. I
Ooh,
got
that gives me the
lazy with that,
chills.
and
That's
it was
good.
negative.
That's a
Yeah,
great one. Thank you for
yeah.
sharing that. I feel like people don't talk about this, but that's if more people did that, it would probably change their entire life.
I think it starts with heart set and mindset.
Hmm.
It starts with those two things. You can't separate those two. And people oftentimes talk about mindset, but they don't talk about heart set. And I think you got it. You have to talk about both. And also, what for me, I noticed that I started to get an imbalance. What I think led me to that point, and I still don't understand it fully, but I think what led me to that point was when I noticed that there was some imbalances in my life where, sure, maybe work was going really well, but my personal life or my relationships weren't doing well, or I wasn't keeping up with my health, or like when I would get out of balance in any one area of my life to an
Yeah,
extreme degree, and maybe even positively in an extreme degree, but I was neglecting other key areas. You got to focus on the mental, you got to focus on the emotional, you got to focus on the spiritual, you got to focus on the relational, and you just got to, I feel almost like it's a chess game. You got to move all those
yeah,
chess pieces forward at a similar rate so that you don't strand your queen on the other side of the board. And I just think whenever I neglect some of those building blocks of a happy life, that's when shit
well, I
starts to
think
hit the
the
fan.
easy thing is to blame everything else. The hard thing is to actually reflect it back to yourself in the mirror. The hard thing is to acknowledge your part
Yeah.
in it and realize, well, maybe it isn't everybody else around me. Maybe it's me. Like that's hard.
Yeah.
And you did the work. That's great. Good for you. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, I'm a very blessed man. And it's amazing when I see what happened to floods in Texas, and life, life is short. And whenever I see a tragedy or hear about a tragedy, I just think that could have been me. It could have been my wife. It could have been our dogs. It
Hmm.
could have been. And one other trick that I learned during this time was to take, and this is going to sound bad, but I'll tell you how it turned out good, to take a more fatalistic view of the world. And what I mean by that is to say, okay, 9 times out of 10, the worst things that we imagine in our life, they never turn out as bad as we think they're going to turn out. But if they were to, if I can emotionally deal with that worst case scenario outcome, then anything less than that is easy. Anything less than that is gravy. Anything less than that is a win. So whenever I have a moment where I'm thinking, oh shit, this is bad, or this could happen, or this could fall over, or whenever I think about something that could end up being, that maybe is stressing me out because I'm thinking, God, if this goes pear
Yeah.
shaped, this is going to be bad. And then I think, okay, what is the worst that could happen? If it does go pear shaped, what is the worst possible outcome that could happen if this thing
Yeah.
happens that you think might happen? Okay, cool. This is the worst case scenario. Could you deal with that? And if you did, what would be your response? What would you do about that? How would you recover from that? And then for me at least, once I've dealt with the worst case possible scenario mentally and emotionally, then I can just move on. I can move on because it's okay. I know what I would do if this happened, which is most likely not going to happen anyway. But if it did happen, then I at least have a plan. And so because I'm a little bit of a planner, it's okay. If I've got a plan, then it de-stresses me and I can just lock that away and say, I've dealt with that and now I can move on. So that's another like little mind hack that
Love
for
it.
me works
Everything
really
you're
well.
outable.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your wisdom, sharing it with me and my
Yes. Thank
audience. If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.